I think Mark Carney, his promise to bring in the legal right to water, a human right for water, that says to you that we've got a Liberal government that certainly has learned from the legacy of Justin Trudeau and is much more focused on a tangible way in which they can deal with that issue, which is if you give First Nations the legal right to water, then they're going to evoke that right. They're going to sue the federal government, and then that will take the attention of the government quite directly out of the hands of political will and put it right into a legal arena, which will then the government will have to deal with it. And I think that's a much more tangible way of approaching things than just expecting someone to put all their political capital in. What my argument is that reconciliation is the only thing to do. And I think Mark Carney's aware of that. That's why he puts 3 cabinet ministers at the table that are Indigenous. But I also think he's fully aware that if he's going to start an aggressive resource agenda, he better create, for instance, loan guarantees and partnerships for First Nations, or else they're not going to come to the table.
You're striking a rather optimistic tone, I would suggest, Niigaan, but I'm wondering if the actual talk that occurred during the campaign should give you pause. It would seem as if there was really a lack of conversation about reconciliation during the campaign. There was a lack of focus on Indigenous affairs. And when there was talk about Indigenous peoples, it was in the context of resource extraction. It was a context of what can be done to boost the Canadian economy, the challenge that might be posed by certain Indigenous communities that might thwart some of that development. Is your optimism perhaps a bit misplaced?
No, my optimism is exactly because that's where we're at. I think it's very easy to be cynical, and it's understandably so. And I don't think that there's anything wrong with being cynical, because it is cynicism that led us to this place. In fact, it's a lot of suspicion and a lot of concern about the federal government. Liberal and Conservatives have generally lied to Indigenous peoples, have had no interest whatsoever. All I'm saying is that this country's taken a very significant step, a progressive step over the past decade. We need to not stop that. We need to be aware and recognize that there have been very significant steps. Like all things in reconciliation, it seems to be more turbulent because change requires bravery. And I think generally people need a healthy dose of bravery when it comes to evoking change, to know that things are going to get hard, things are going to get harder before they get better. We are in the hard stage now. We are in the harder stage now. I'm not sure if that's optimism or if it's perhaps realism to say that let's look at the positive steps that we made, but we have to make thousands more. In fact, we've only scratched the tip of what reconciliation even begins to look like. This federal election is a good step, but also the fact that we have a governor general who is an Inuit and speaks the Inuktitut language. And these are unprecedented times where we see a lot of unprecedented things. And so it's on one level exciting, on another level very turbulent.
You've been listening to a clip of In Bed with the Elephant with me, your host, Adrian Harewood. Be sure to check out the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon, iHeartRadio, and YouTube. And please be sure to like and subscribe to the podcast and write a review. We love hearing from you.